Center, which was a fantastic experience. You know, little did I know 20 plus years ago that I would be back here, essentially living in Asia and leveraging that experience to do what I'm so excited about now to share with you. Went back to grad school. I was at Columbia for business school and law school. Worked as a lawyer for many years in New York, doing primarily, representing financial institutions. Jumped into investment banking back in 2006. So I was at Lehman Brothers, luckily before they collapsed. Then was at Credit Suisse doing leverage finance, and then most recently at Deutsche Bank, I ran their principal finance group, all the structuring, the sourcing, negotiated. I was calculating the other day about $100 billion in transactions over the last 25 years. So lots of corporate experience. In connection with I-cash, when we started this about a year and a half ago, we realized we knew how important Asia was going to be and how important it actually is. So it's going to be and how important it actually is. So I relocated my family. My wife is actually Korean from Japan. So we moved back to Japan, took my kids there, and we really, I was probably in Korea almost once a week for a while. So we've really established a strong base here, everything from the advisor level, and I'm happy to see a lot of our advisors and familiar faces. I'm almost happier to see a lot of faces that I don't recognize, and it just shows that there's a lot of interest in what we're doing. But we really set up a great foundation, lots of strategic partnerships that we're excited to talk to you about, as well as a very broad investor base. And what you should know is that we've essentially recreated this all over, in every jurisdiction where we're compliant and where we can operate, including in Japan, where we're working with regulators to get listed. So that's a quick introduction from me. I'm going to turn it over to Will McDonough, our founder and CEO. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the support. As Jonathan said, pretty much within the first 3 months of starting iCash, we're very thankful that he moved his family over here and made it so clear to the region how important this part of the world is to our success, and how much it was important for us to have local partnerships, have advisors from the region, have listings in the region, investors from the region. So we're thankful for all of the support. I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I started my career 20 years ago for the American football team, the New England Patriots. About shortly thereafter, I started a management company representing brands in the state, Bunchin, his wife, and worldwide model, Nelson Mandela and his estate. And then in 2004, I started a media company with Warren Buffett and Martha Stewart, which we sold to Tata Group in India. In 2007, I started a hedge fund of funds with Avenue Capital in New York, which is a $20 billion private equity shop. And in 2010, I was hired by Gary Hired, which was about $17 billion. And then in 2013, I decided to leave Goldman and start my own company with Bob Diamond, the former CEO of Barclays, and we bought 8 banks in Africa, taking that public on the London Stock Exchange for $825 million US in 2014. And since that time, I've been working on fintech and blockchain and learning about the efficiencies that these new technologies can bring to not only financial institutions, but to the world. And upon really learning about blockchain, well, I'll tell you really quickly about our team. You already met Jonathan, my partner. Our Chief Technology Officer, Ling, many people know. He's been living in Seoul, between Seoul and San Francisco for the past year, so he may be a familiar face. He's based in San Francisco and oversees our full-time development team of 15 developers. Our development team's last 2 projects that they rolled out were JP Morgan's private blockchain and Comcast NBC's private blockchain. So it's a team that's built and deployed institutional scale and quality before. Our Chief Compliance Officer ran risk management for a $75 billion pension fund. So we take regulations and compliance very seriously, and it's been the cornerstone of our practice. We're also thankful our lawyers here in Korea are here. We have representation and regulatory guidance in 23 different jurisdictions across the world to ensure that the tokens that we sell are fully compliant with local regulation. So let me take a step back and talk about what is a blockchain and our approach to our protocol. So when you hear about blockchains, you hear about Bitcoin, you hear about Ethereum, you hear about EOS. I always draw people's attention to the same way that Apple or BlackBerry or Android have different operating systems. Different blockchains are different operating systems on which different protocols or different apps can be built. Could you imagine anyone standing in front of you pitching an app and saying it's only going to be accessible on BlackBerry? It just wouldn't make sense. So the fact that people build protocols or build applications exclusively for specific blockchains doesn't make any sense to me. It's very important to the future of our business to be accessible on multiple blockchains, but also to be accessible on private blockchains as well, which I'll talk about in a bit. So blockchain is one thing, and really the future, I believe, of blockchains are smart contracts. So what are smart contracts? The original smart contract machine was the vending machine, because you went up to a vending machine, made a very specific input, and a multitude of things had to happen for that contract to be completed. So using this example, if you went up to a vending machine and inputted D3, the computer would read, does column D, row 3 have inventory? It would request 75 cents from the machine. If you then inputted $1 into the machine, it would authenticate that dollar. It would redeem you 25 cents. It would make you change. And then it would turn 1/4 turn in column D, row 3, and release your Snickers bar to you. All of those steps are automated in a smart contract. And when people talk about the efficiencies of smart contracts in the real world, this is a very basic example. Well, what would happen if you inputted D3 and you wanted a Snickers bar and a bag of chips came out? If that smart contract executed inaccurately and delivered you the wrong item, there's no reversibility to that. So one of the better things about blockchain is this immutable ledger. Well, that's one of the biggest risks as well. And what we have solved with the I-cash Proof of Trust protocol is the ability to contest an inaccurate settlement. So we've created the capacity for you to say, stop, I didn't order a bag of chips. I ordered a Snickers bar. And have a network of delegates that can look at the entirety of the contract and recognize that in fact a mistake was made and correct that mistake. I also enjoy putting up this picture of this old sailor who has all his girlfriend's names tattooed on his arm. Because what that highlights is tattoos and blockchain entries are irreversible. So you better be very sure that your input is valid before you make it. This sailor was not very sure about his girlfriend's being the final destination. And he has a lot of inaccurate entries to his immutable ledger. Don't operate on blockchain unless you're confident that the settlement of your smart contracts is accurate. As I alluded to, the gift of the blockchain is that it's decentralized, it's incorruptible, it's distributed. But what that really also means is that the curse is that it's unaccountable, it's irreversible, and you have no recourse against that inaccuracy. These are risks that institutions and Fortune 500s cannot and will not take. And if we all want blockchain adoption to continue, it's going to need adoption from institutions and from Main Street players. And I'm telling you now, they will not adopt this technology with current risk. So what the I-cash Proof of Trust protocol introduces is the capacity for trusted arbitration, the ability to contest a contract if you feel like the settlement is inaccurate, and in the ultimate case, insurance. Insurance over the accuracy of smart contract settlements will open up potential users of blockchain technology